Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Ever since humanity began sailing the world's deep waters, the sea has always been a perilous place for sailors. Even in the modern age, with significant advancements in terms of navigation, communication, and transport, the risk of danger is a high one. As maritime travel increased over time, so too did the number of stories of ships lost at sea or wrecked in violent storms. Some of these lost or destroyed vessels were said to maintain their presence on the waters, appearing as ghost ships that sail on through the darkest of nights and the most turbulent of storms. The most famous of these ghost ships is the spectral Dutch flout, forever doomed to sail the seas and never make port, the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman is described as a massive, fully sailed ship, appearing with an otherworldly glow about it, and hovering ever so slightly above the surface of the water. Often appearing in the midst of great storms or incredibly thick fog, the ship is said to materialize as if from nowhere, and then vanish from view as fast as it had appeared. Though nautical folklore is rife with superstitions, to see a glimpse of the Flying Dutchman is said to be one of the worst possible omens that sailors may ever encounter. In all of its tellings, the Flying Dutchman is a harbinger of doom, whether for the sailor who sees it, or the entire vessel that they sail upon. Misfortune is soon to follow in the ship's wake. A chilling legend indeed, but just where did the story of the Flying Dutchman originate? There are a number of different tellings as to how the fabled ship and its crew met its undead fate. Legend has it that the ship that would one day become the Flying Dutchman was part of the Dutch East India Company's fleet in 1641. The ship's captain, Hendrik van der Decken, and his crew were returning to Holland from Asia when they had to risk passage around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, a place known for violent storms. As van der Decken and his crew attempted to round the cape, a storm began, thrashing the vessel about like a leaf in a torrent. The crew begged their captain not to go through with it, terrified of the dangerous tempest. Some early accounts say that the captain tried to escape the maelstrom, but was unable to. And later tellings say that van der Decken would not be swayed, no matter how loud the crew argued, or how fierce the storm. Some accounts even go on to say that his crew attempted a mutiny against him, only for the captain to dispatch the leader of the mutineers. Overcome by determination and sheer madness, Captain van der Decken vowed that he would sail around the Cape, even if it took him until Judgment Day. With these words, the mad captain cursed his ship and entire crew. The stories vary upon what happens next. Some say that the Christian God heard the blasphemous words and delivered the curse upon them. Others, that an angel had descended to sway the captain from his reckless course, only for van der Decken to scoff at the warning, sealing the fate of him, his ship, and all aboard. Most stories, however, say that it was the devil himself who received the captain's words and cursed the Dutchman. Regardless of who or what delivered the curse, Captain Vanderdecken and the Flying Dutchman were condemned to sail the seas until Judgment Day, often within the cover of hurricanes, like the one that they had originally sailed through. Any vessel to see them henceforth was doomed to sink to the bottom of the deep. Since the 17th century, alleged sightings of the Flying Dutchman have been spoken of throughout nautical trade routes. The earliest written record of the phantom ship comes from 1790 in the writings of John MacDonald in his work Travels in Various Parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. MacDonald writes, "The weather was so stormy that the sailors said that they saw the Flying Dutchman. The common story is that this Dutchman came to the Cape in distress of weather, and wanted to get into the harbor, but could not get a pilot to conduct her, and was lost, and that ever since, in very bad weather, her vision appears. The sailors fancy that, if you would hail her, she would answer like another vessel." Nearly a century afterward, a well-known sighting came in 1881 from Prince George of Wales, who would go on to become King George V. The encounter is recorded in The Cruise of Her Majesty's Ship Bacchante, a compilation of journal entries and letters of Prince George and his brother, Prince Albert Victor. The entry reads, "July 11th, at 4 a.m., the Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light, as of phantom ship all aglow, in the midst of which light the masts, spars, and sails of a brig 200 yards distant, stood out in strong relief as she came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarter-deck midshipman, who was sent forward at once to the forecastle. But on arriving there was no vestige or any sign whatever of any material ship was to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm. 13 persons altogether saw her. At 10:45 a.m., the ordinary seaman, who had this morning reported the Flying Dutchman, fell from the topmost mass, crosstrees, onto the topgallant, forecastle, and was smashed to atoms." Most explanations for the apparent sightings of the Flying Dutchman are often chalked up to be mirages seen upon the horizon. The phantom ship's fearsome reputation, no doubt, hung in the mind of many superstitious sailors. To imagine the vision of a large 17th century ship in the chaos of an ocean storm may not be that hard of a feat. Whether or not the legend of the Flying Dutchman has any truth behind the myth, the story of the ghastly vessel and the reported sightings surrounding it have captured the minds of people all over the world. The Flying Dutchman appears in a variety of works of fiction, appearing on the stage, in written works, and in feature films. Nautical folklore is a vast fleet of superstitions and ghost stories, but the Flying Dutchman's legend leads the fleet, with both fear and intrigue.